Hello everyone, my name is Claudius Cazan. In this video, we continue to perform harmonic analysis on the Choral Her, ich habe mich gehandelt by Johann Krüger, an early Baroque composer, a hymn composer actually, a German composer. And we're going to concentrate on lines 2 and 3 of the chorale today. Last time we performed harmonic analysis on the first line. We continue with lines 2 and 3 today, and I will be right back. Welcome back. Let's take a look at lines number 2 and 3 from this wonderful, simple chorale by Johann Krüger called Herr, ich habe mich gehandelt, which was translated, Lord, to thee I make confession. It doesn't quite translate that way, but you know, I guess the idea is there. However, we're not dealing with the text aspect of the chorale, but the musical one. And what I'd like to do first is to go to the piano and perform the entire chorale for you so you can hear it. Also, pay attention to what happens at the end of line 3 in terms of tonality, okay? And when I come back, we'll go chord by chord and we'll analyze everything to see exactly what happens. So I'm going to go to the piano and perform the chorale one more time for you. Great. Let's go chord by chord and analyze. We're going to go through quickly through those chords that we already know. All right, first chord on the second line is a G, B flat D chord. You can see that in the corner, okay? In the upper right corner here, I am setting all the triads in root position for you guys, okay? And they highlight in synchronization with what's going on in the chorale in the lower part here, all right? So you can follow along, and you can also see where your roots are, where your thirds, your fifth, seventh, and so on, all right? And you can see this is a lowercase Roman numeral 1, meaning it's the chord of the tonic in G minor. It's a minor chord, that's why lowercase. G, B flat, D. The bass has the root of the chord, therefore we don't need any figures, right? So the chord of the 1 of the tonic in root position. The next chord, okay, is, if you put it in thirds, is F sharp, A, C. Okay, we don't have the F sharp in the bass. We have the A in the bass, meaning that this is a chord in first inversion. Okay, and if the root is F sharp, what is the Roman numeral? F sharp is the leading tone in G, also known as the 7th degree. Okay, and it's F sharp because even in a minor key, we need the leading tone. We're talking about tonality and tonal music here. And tonal music wants us to have a leading tone. That's why the F sharp, okay? F sharp is part of G minor. F sharp AC is the chord built on the 7th degree, all right? And it's a diminished chord. It has 2 minor thirds on top of each other, F sharp to A and A to C. That's why you see that little circle next to this lowercase Roman numeral 7 on the bottom. That means it's a diminished triad. and it's also in first inversion. A, it's in the bass. Therefore, we get the Arabic numeral 6, which means first inversion. All right? So, lowercase Roman numeral 7 with the circle. That means it's diminished chord in first inversion. That's why the Arabic numeral 6. Okay? Very good. We haven't seen this one before, but it's a very popular chord. Okay? We'll see later on, those chords built on the 7th degree, they have a dominant function. Okay? It's also called an incomplete dominant, but we'll learn about that a little later. All right, next chord is, again, the chord of the 1. Okay, G, B flat, D are the notes, but G, again, is not in the bass this time. The B flat is. That's why G minor in first inversion, lowercase Roman numeral 1 with the 6 next to it, meaning first inversion. Okay, very easy there. All right, the next one is the chord of the 5, which is built on D, D, F sharp, A. Okay, if you look at these chords from the bottom up, F sharp, A, D, and A, you know, you have to immediately arrange them in thirds. I arrange them already for you in thirds up there, but if you do not have that sketch of the chords in root position, you have to immediately think, oh, can I put these notes in thirds? And you can here. If you start on the D, go to the F sharp, and then A. Okay, that's the chord of the 5, okay, as a triad. But D is not in the bass. The F sharp is in the bass. Therefore, you're talking about a triad in first inversion. That's why it gets the little Arabic numeral 6. Okay, so 5 because it's a major chord. It's the dominant. Okay, and 6 for the first inversion. Very good. Next is, again, the chord of the 1, and it's the same exact position as the first chord in this line. Nothing new there. We're going to go quickly through that because there's nothing new. And the next chord is the chord of the 4 because it's built on C. C, E flat, G. Okay, C, the root there, it's the 4th degree in G minor. G, A, B flat, C. That's why it's the chord of the 4, and because it's minor, okay, it gets a lowercase Roman numeral 4 with the Arabic 6, meaning that it's in first inversion. We don't have the C in the bass, we have E flat in the bass. All right? So, a couple of new chords that we're seeing in here, but they're all working well in G minor. And the final chord on this line, again, is the chord of the 5, D, F sharp, A. Okay, and Mr. Kruger is resting on this chord for a little bit with the fermata, meaning that we have a cadence here that we have to look at. Okay, so that's the chord of the 5. Now we're going to look to see in here what we're coming from into this cadence. We're coming in from the chord of the 4, 6 into the 5, but we're resting on the 5. Okay, this cadence, by the way, it's called a half cadence. Every time you rest on the 5th degree of the tonality, okay, and you have a cadence there, it's called a half cadence because you're not having a final cadence, you're not having an authentic cadence that goes to the 1. We're resting on the dominant of the key, and they had to come up with some kind of a name for it, and they called it a half cadence. All right, so remember, half cadence, it's when you stop temporarily on the 5th degree of the key that you're in. Excellent. Very good. So far, so good. Let's look at the third line. Third line, again, starts with the chord of the 1, G, B flat, D. A little different arrangement of the notes, but it's the same chord. Lowercase Roman numeral 1. Nothing new there. The next chord is the chord of the 6. We haven't seen this before. It's built on E flat. E flat, G, B flat. Okay? And it's a major triad. That's why the uppercase 6, Roman numeral 6. Okay? And it's in root position, so we don't need any figures and so on. Okay? And following chord is the chord of the 3 again. Okay? And it's built on B flat, D, F. Okay, that's a major one again. it's in first inversion. That's why the Arabic numeral 6. B flat is not in the bass. The D, the third, is in the bass. Okay? And that moves into the chord of the 3 in root position. So all he does in here, he maintains that same harmony, the 3, but rearranges the notes so that you end up with a chord in root position this time instead of the first inversion. It's perfectly fine to do that. A lot of composers do this. If they need to rearrange notes, to rescore things, you can move freely from chords in inversion back to root position and back to inversions. That's pretty, and you keep the same harmony going, the same notes, and you're free to just rescore all the notes as you see fit. Good. Next chord is the one on the 4 again, C, E flat, G. Okay, C is the 4th degree in G minor. Okay, and if you look at the first beat on that measure, C, E flat, G. Okay, all these notes are part of the chord. They are called chord tones. But then on the second beat of that measure, we have the straggler note A that comes in. Okay. You have to see now, what does the A do? Okay. It ties nicely from the G, which is a chord tone, A, and then B flat, which is also a chord tone in the next chord. Okay? And these kind of non-chord tones that are approached and left in the same direction by step are called passing tones. Okay? We'll see it shortly notated here as a passing tone. Okay? Now, on the third beat of that measure, you have the chord of the 3 again in first inversion. D, B flat, F, D is the chord from the bottom up. But if you arrange them in thirds, it's B flat, D, F. That's the chord of the 3 in first inversion because D is in the bass. Okay? So all those notes on the third beat are chord tones. You can see how that A from the previous beat is a non-chord tone, right? It ties nicely from one chord tone, the one on the first beat, to the one on the third beat, going really nicely in between there, tying those two chord tones. So again, a chord tone like that, it's called a passing tone. Okay? And that's exactly what happens also in the bass. Now, I'm notating passing tones with a circle with the arrow going through it, meaning that it's basically approached and left in the same direction by step. So that's the definition of a passing tone. Okay, remember these non-chord tones now, passing tones. They're the simplest of the non-chord tones. Okay, you saw the suspension as a non-chord tone. The suspension is more complex because it needs to be prepared, all right, and from the measure before, where it's a chord tone, and then it resolves down by step, and so on. But passing tones, basically, if you have a line that's moving stepwise like that, you can employ passing tones really easy as non-chord tones. All right, very good. Let's look at the fourth measure on this line. If you were to isolate this measure and just play the fourth measure here, it sounds like this. And that resolves to the chord in the last measure there. This is exactly what we had on the first line, except that it worked in a different key. The one on the first line that we saw last time worked in the original G minor key. This one, this harmonic progression, works in a different key that he's borrowing from. Okay? And if we were to go to the next measure, the last measure there, he resolves everything to B flat. But if you were to isolate these two measures, okay, you basically what you have, it's a 5-to-1 harmonic progression with, of course, the 4-3 suspension, which we saw last time, and the 8-7 also brought in, meaning that he's bringing the 7th of that chord on the last beat before he resolves it. The only difference between this and what we saw last time is that this one works in B flat major, the one last time worked in the original key of G minor. Now the thing is, how do we notate this? Okay, we have a 5-1 in the key of B flat, which is, by the way, the relative key of G minor. So the composer really went to the relative major key and says, okay, let me borrow a harmonic progression, a simple harmonic progression from that key, okay? But we have to notate it somehow, and we can notate it 5-1 as long as we reference everything back to G minor. We can't just switch keys like that and say, okay, now we're in G flat, now in B flat, and forget about G minor. No, we're still in G minor, and we have to reference everything to the original key. The way to do this is with a slash notation, okay? So we have a 5 of 3 going to 3 in here, okay? 3 being B flat major. So we have a 5 of the B flat major, that F major chord, FAC, resolving to B flat DF. So now you're going to ask, well, that's interesting because F natural really does not belong to G minor. Remember, in G minor we have F sharp. F sharp is the leading tone, and that's the true F that should be associated with G minor. G minor has a leading tone, just like all the other tonalities. We're talking about tonal music here that needs to have leading tones. F sharp AC is the chord built on the 7th degree, okay? So, and even the 5-7 chord in, or the 5 chord in G minor has F sharp. Now, here we have F natural, okay? F AC moving to B flat DF, okay? So therefore, that F natural does not really belong to G minor, but it belongs to B flat major, which is our relative major key. All right, the 3. And it works wonderfully in that key, and he outlines it really nicely here as a 5, okay, moving to 1. So we do have a 5-1 relationship here, but we have to reference it back to G minor because G minor is our original key. All right, so we have to say in here with a slash notation, this is the 5 of 3, or the 5 of B flat, resolving to the 1 of 3, or just the 3. We don't put 1 of 3 because 1 of 3 is really the 3 itself, okay? So remember this, if you're borrowing harmonic progressions from another tonality, okay, even if it's just a couple of them in here, you have to reference everything back to the original key, and to do that properly is with the slash notation. In here, we have the 5-1 relationship, but belonging to the key of B flat. 5 of 3 resolving to the 1 of 3, or just the 3. All right? Hope you guys understand. You also see how I notated the 4-3 suspension in here, and the 8-7, okay? The triad becoming a 7th chord at the very end of the measure before the last in here on the 4th beat becomes a 5-7 resolving to the 1 of 3. Okay, exactly the same progression that we had on the first line, except that on the first line we had it in G minor. Here we have it in the relative major key, which is B flat major. But we have to reference everything back to G minor, therefore we use the slash notation. Okay, excellent. Let's look at the cadence in here. What kind of a cadence we have? Well, we have a 5-1 harmonic progression, therefore we have an authentic cadence. All right, it's not in the original key of G minor. It's in the key of B flat or 3. That's why we call it an authentic cadence in 3. Now, let's look to see if it's perfect or imperfect. We look at it and say, yes, it's perfect because the B flat, the root of the last chord, it's also present in the soprano, not just the bass, right? And when that happens, we're talking about a perfect authentic cadence. So the entire label for this, perfect authentic in 3, meaning in the relative major of G minor, which is B flat major. I hope you guys understand this. Then this is where we're going to end today, because you might need to rewind the video to understand this. If you already understood it, kudos to you. It's great. You're going to be set for understanding much more complex harmonic progressions that we're going to look at very soon after this. All right. In my next video, we're going to look at the fourth line, and then we're going to look at the chorale in general. What does Johann Kruger do in here? Even though this is a very simple chorale, just basically just plays with the chords that belong to the key, but he also borrows a little bit from the relative major. Okay, and this is how you keep things interesting. You know, if you were to just keep the chords from your original tonality, things would get boring very, very fast. But here you can see he brings in interest by borrowing chords from another tonality. And because it's B flat major, which is the relative major of G minor, he doesn't have to do too much. That's why you don't see any accidentals. You don't see anything crazy going on in here. All that genetic material, all the pitches and so, are common between the two tonalities, except for the F. Okay? We have F sharp in G minor. We have natural F in B flat. That's why you have to be very careful in here. And we notate these things with the slash notation, meaning that we're borrowing things from another tonality. Excellent. Let's move on to the starter now, and we're going to be looking at exercise number 40 from star. Okay, the practical part of the lesson in here, and I will perform it for you with the metronome at 70. Since these exercises employ 16th notes that go by quite quickly, I'd like to slow them down a little bit. So no 80, we're going to go to 70 for a few exercises at least that employ 16th notes. All right, let's quickly look at number 40. It starts with an upbeat. The upbeat is very, very short. It's a 16th note. That's why you have to steal it from the last measure. That's why if you look at the last measure there, it has a double dotted quarter note in there. Okay, you add the 16th notes and a double dotted quarter note, and you get 7 of them. Why 7 and not 8? Because one of them, it's part of the upbeat, okay, to the first measure in number 40. All right, I'm going to put the metronome at 70. Okay, this is in 2/4, very simple, but you have to look ahead. Look ahead because these are a little tricky, especially what happens on line 3. So here we go. Da 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 da. Great, that will have to do. For next time, I want you guys to look at number 41. Number 41, it's even more complex because it brings in ties over the bar line and internally. Okay, because now we're adding values together, so it gets a little more difficult. Only number 41, and I will also perform it for you. Very good. Let's move on to solfege. Solfege number 41. You already know that it's in G major, has 1 sharp in the key signature. And how do I know it's G major? Well, it ends with G and also starts with a B, which is part of the tonic chord. B, right? And has a lot of accidentals. Accidentals meaning, you know, chromatic alterations of notes, nothing crazy. But again, you have to practice with the keyboard. Practice with the keyboard very, very carefully, slowly, not fast. 1 or 2 measures at a time, and then try to put them together. My metronome will also stay at 70. Okay, I might get my beginning pitch again. C
la, sol, fa, mi, do, si, do, re, mi, fa, re, sol, mi, sol, fa, mi, re, si, do, re, mi, fa, re, si, do, re, mi, re. Si, la, sol, fa, mi, re, sol, fa, mi, re, si, la, do, si, la, sol, fa, mi, fa, sol, la, si, la, sol, fa, mi, re, sol, la, si, re, la, re, sol, fa, sol, la, si, re, do, la, sol, fa, mi, re, do, si, do, re, mi, fa, sol, si, sol, fa, la, fa, mi, re, sol, la, si, re, sol, fa, si, do, la, si, sol, do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, sol, re, mi, fa, sol, fa, si, do, re, mi, re, sol, fa, re, mi, re, sol, fa, sol, mi, fa, sol, do, re, si, la, sol, la, re, sol, fa, si, la, sol, fa, sol.
All right, that will have to do. Great. For next time, solfege number 41 and 42, which goes with the star exercises as well. So it will employ 16th notes, ties, all kinds of patterns, and so on. Great. In my next video, again, we're going to talk about line 4 from the Johann Kruger Choral, and you know, the star and the new solfege that I assigned to you guys. Until then, I want you to stay safe and healthy and be good.